The respective successes of Donald Trump and Kendrick Lamar are, in my opinion, manifestations of a larger cultural shift. The collective consciousness is moving, whether we realize it or not, and the trajectory is clear. We are drifting from the left to the right. Now, this isn't just about politics, because left and right aren't merely party affiliations. They are cultural forces that represent two archetypal energies, one that expands and one that fortifies. To set the stage, consider this poem from a student at the Belvoir Marcus Institute of Language and Arts. It's called The Tempest. When no options are left, do the right thing. The conservative sees the winds of change and battens down. The liberal sees the winds of change and opens the sails. It is in the harmony of this dichotomy that the ship prevails. The winds of change are upon us, and it is a tempest. So in this poem, we'll break it down English literature style. The ship is America, or the culture underneath America, the spirit of America. The storm is the cultural moments that we find ourselves in. The question is, whose instinct do we follow? Do we continue to open the sails, pushing societal norms, redefining core values, putting more stress on the structure for the sake of progress? Or do we batten down the hatches, securing borders, minimizing the bureaucracy, and reestablishing faith in the core values of America, like revitalizing the concept of American exceptionalism? The two archetypes, who they are and what they represent. So you have the conservative, or the right, which is traditional, skeptical of change, survival-oriented, discipline, masculine, yang energy. The liberal, or the left, is more counterculture, driven by change, growth-oriented, spontaneous, feminine, yin energy. These are not rigid labels, but archetypes, patterns that emerge in culture. Not every conservative fits the archetype of the conservative, nor does every liberal embody the liberal. But in times of turbulence, these energies make themselves manifest. So why is the culture shift happening now? Make no mistake, these events we are seeing take place in the physical world are shadows in Plato's cave cast by events taking place in the spiritual world. It's difficult to know what those spiritual events are, but one thing is clear. The winds of change are violent. The ship is rocking. In such moments, opening the sails, inviting more chaos, is fatal. The instinct to fortify is winning because it is necessary for survival. The collective understands this, and it is being reflected in a cultural return to discipline, resilience, and the rejection of facades, thus the election of Donald Trump. Now, I understand to people on the opposing side, Donald Trump represents the opposite of the things I just named: discipline, resilience, and the rejection of facades. If anything, people on the other side might think he's the biggest fraud and facade there is. I would beg to differ. I think you can find fault in people without levying all negativity or negative traits at them, accusing them of all negative traits. So if you find someone to be just generally unsavory, you don't like them, you don't like the things they believe in, that doesn't mean this person is all of the negative qualities that you might want to attribute to them. Sometimes bad people, they're not liars. They're very truthful. So what does that have to do with Kendrick Lamar? So politics is downstream from culture. So when you see a political shift, there was a cultural shift that occurred first. So it's kind of like a concentric rings with a delayed reaction. So if this here, this is culture, this is politics. So the The inner concentric ring turns first. The outer concentric ring turns in response to the change in direction. So it would be like that and then that. Like a circular Rubik's Cube, a Rubik's sphere. So on paper, Kendrick Lamar is politically on the left. But temperamentally, he would be more akin to the conservative in The Tempest. His instinct is to protect the culture, to preserve what is sacred, to fortify against threats to longevity. There is a line in Man at the Garden. He says, "It angers me to know that lames can speak on the game I breathe. That's insane to me." I don't know if that's verbatim, but I'll put the actual lyric somewhere up here. And it's a pretty clear reference to Drake. But on a larger scale, on a more important note, this is the voice of a guardian watching his domain erode. This is the conservative impulse to protect, to cleanse, to return to core values. This is all encapsulated in this lyric, because what he's saying is the culture that is sacred to him has been infiltrated by people and the opinions of people that really shouldn't be speaking on it, people that should have no sway in the development of the culture that he's from or the culture that he loves. And I hope the synchronicity of these two stories, Kendrick Lamar and Donald Trump, is not lost on you. Sometimes it makes itself so present that it's impossible to ignore. Like, for example, Kendrick collecting the spoils of war at the Grammys dressed in a Canadian tuxedo. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is bullying the leader of Canada, Justin Trudeau. The fact that these are happening at the same time is not coincidental. Both of these figures are correcting what they see as cultural contamination. Both reject the outsiders who threaten their world. Both are vessels of a cultural shift demanding authenticity and strength. So, one of the points that came up when Donald Trump began his campaign, his re-election campaign, I don't know how projected to the greater consciousness this was, but there was talks about him being labeled a strongman candidate or a strongman leader, which is not actually a good thing. It's more a term used to reference dictators and authoritarians. But the verbiage is interesting. Kendrick Lamar is to hip-hop what Donald Trump is to America. Both are relentless, both refuse to yield, both stepped in when they believed the ship was being steered off course, and the overwhelming successes they are having are proof that the collective agrees with them. So what does this mean for you and I, and regular people who are not engaged in high-level political maneuvers or incredibly public rap beefs? The culture rewards those who answer its call, and right now the call is for authenticity. One of the main issues voters had with Kamala was a lack of authenticity. Her inconsistent stances, behavioral contradictions, and multiple accents gave many voters, including myself, difficulty in taking her at her word. Whereas with Trump, whether you like what he says or not, you can rest assured he means it. This dynamic is mirrored perfectly in the dichotomy of the Pulitzer Prize winner and Mr. O.V.Ho. Drake has garnered a similar level of skepticism as Kamala surrounding his authenticity because of his reputation of accent switching, culture vulturing, and telling stories that are verifiably false. It appears both of them are perpetually unburdened by what has been, so they are always free to exploit what is. Kendrick Lamar aligned with the cultural shift towards authenticity and became its vessel. Donald Trump did the same. Both of these figures represent the assertion of authenticity, realness, and the protection and preservation of their culture. Now it's your turn. Figure out who you are, define your values, and stand on them unrelentingly. In the last era, selling your soul or compromising your morals was a fast track to success. But today, that playbook is being, for lack of a better term, patched. Those who built their fortunes on deception are collapsing under the weight of karmic retribution. Integrity and conviction are now the highest forms of currency. The biggest entertainers in the world, streamers, are the ones who put their most authentic selves in front of the largest possible audience for extended periods of time. You can't really fake your personality for 24 hours or even 6. The public is waking up, rejecting propaganda, disregarding facades, and seeing through deceit. People are fed up with the inauthentic. They want what is real. So if you be your real and authentic self, then you will prosper in the new era that we're moving into.